For 2 millennia, the world has known Epang Palace as a mythic marvel, a labyrinth of towers and halls, stripped bare and burned to the ground by Xiang Yu's rebel army, a tragic symbol of Qin's excess and collapse. But what if I told you every part of that story is wrong? What if the greatest palace in ancient Chinese history was never even completed? What if the famous fire that destroyed it never happened at all? Today, we dive into strict, peer-reviewed historical records and cutting-edge archaeological evidence to unpack the rise, the frozen construction, and the quiet ruin of Epang Palace, the unfinished wonder that broke the Qin dynasty. Let us start with the man who ordered it, built Huang, the first emperor of China. By 212 BCE, he had ruled a unified empire for nearly a decade. He had standardized weights, measures, currency, and writing. He had built the Great Wall to hold back northern nomads. He had dug massive canals to link river systems. And he had begun the mausoleum of the first emperor at Mount Li, a tomb so grand it would take decades to finish. But he was growing dissatisfied with his existing palaces in Xianyang. Records of the Grand Historian by Sima Qian, the most trusted source of early Chinese history, clearly state, Qin Huang motive. The emperor believes Xianyang has grown too crowded, and the palaces of the former kings are too small. He sought a new seat of power, one that matched his vision of eternal empire. He chose a site south of the Wei River, in the fertile Shangling Garden, a location he deemed fit for a true emperor's court, following the legacy of King Wen and King Wu of Zhou, who ruled from nearby Feng and Hao. This was not a random choice. It was a political statement, a declaration that his dynasty would surpass all who came before. Construction began in the 35th year of Qin Shi Huang's reign, or 212 BCE. The scale was almost incomprehensible for its time. The core of the project was the front hall Epang, which gives the entire complex its name. Sima Qian writes that this hall would stretch 500 paces east to west, roughly 690 meters, and 50 zhang, north to south, about 115 meters. It would be large enough to hold 10,000 people at once, and tall enough to erect a 50-foot flag beneath its beams. Raised walkways would circle the hall leading south to the peaks of Mount Nan, which would serve as natural gate towers. A covered corridor would cross the Wei River, connecting Epang Palace to the Xianyang Palace complex, mirroring the celestial path, linking stars in the night sky. This was architecture as cosmic propaganda. The emperor's home would mirror the heavens, cementing his divine right to rule. To build this, Qin Huang mobilized a staggering workforce. Alongside the 700,000 laborers already toiling on his mausoleum, he drafted tens of thousands more criminals, conscripted farmers, prisoners of war, and ordinary citizens trapped by Qin's brutal corvée system. These men worked without pay, under constant threat of punishment, separated from their families, for years many dying from exhaustion, hunger, or exposure. This was not construction. It was state-mandated, suffering on an industrial scale. For 2 years, the work continued at a brutal pace. Laborers flattened land, dug foundations, and pounded earth into massive platforms, rammed earth structures that required layers of soil, compacted until they were as hard as stone. Archaeologists have since confirmed the front hall's rammed earth platform measures an astonishing 1,270 meters long, 426 meters wide, and up to 12 meters high, making it the largest ancient rammed earth building foundation ever discovered. But in 210 BCE, disaster struck the project, and the entire Qin Empire, Qin Shi Huang, died suddenly during a tour of the eastern provinces. The court fell into chaos. The new ruler, Qin Shi, faced an immediate crisis. His father's body had to be buried quickly, and the mausoleum was still unfinished. In a desperate decision, he pulled every single laborer from the Epang Palace site and sent them to Mount Li to rush completion of the tomb. For 7 full months, Epang Palace stood silent, its half-finished walls and empty platforms gathering dust. The grand vision of the first emperor was put on hold, perhaps forever. Once the mausoleum was secure and Qin Shi Huang was buried, Qin Shi made a fatal choice. To honor his father's legacy and shore up his own fragile authority, he ordered construction of Epang Palace to resume. He recalled a portion of the labor force, around 100,000 men, and restarted the work. But by this time, the Qin Empire was teetering on the edge of collapse. Years of endless forced labor, crippling taxes, and cruel legal punishments had turned the people against the dynasty. In the same year, construction resumed. 209 BCE, Chen Sheng and Wu Guang launched the first major peasant rebellion in Chinese history. What began as a small group of conscripts facing execution for late arrival exploded into a nationwide uprising. Rebel armies spread across the empire, seizing cities, killing officials, and threatening the capital itself. The situation was so dire that top government officials, Prime Minister Li Si, General Feng Jie, and other senior ministers begged ChineseHistory to halt Epang Palace immediately. They warned him that continuing the project while the empire burned would destroy the dynasty. But ChineseHistory, blinded by arrogance and controlled by the corrupt eunuch, Zhao Gao, refused. He arrested, tried, and executed the officials who dared to oppose him. He chose his father's unfinished palace over the survival of his empire. This act of political madness sealed Qin's fate. For 2 more years, laborers worked on Epang Palace as rebel forces closed in on Xiangyang. In 207 BCE, Zhao Gao staged a coup forcing ChineseHistory to commit suicide. With the emperor dead and the court in ruins, all construction on Epang Palace stopped for the final time. The project was abandoned, left exactly as it was, a massive rammed earth platform, 3 unfinished walls, piles of building materials, and no completed halls, towers, or roofs. It was not a glorious palace. It was the largest, unfinished construction site in the ancient world. Months later, Xiang Yu's rebel army entered Xiangyang, sacked the city, and burned the original Xiangyang palace complexes. Historical records confirm the fire destroyed Qin's old palaces, but not Epang. For 2,000 years, storytellers, poets, and historians mixed up the two sites, blaming Xiang Yu for burning a palace that was never even built. The Tang Dynasty poet, Du Mu, immortalized this myth in his Ode to Epang Palace, writing of a glittering complex covering 300 li, with towers and pavilions blocking out the sun. His beautiful dramatic writing fixed the false story in global memory, turning an unfinished ruin into a legend of tyranny and destruction. Modern archaeology has finally set the record straight. Starting in the 1990s and continuing through 2025, teams from the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences and Xi and archaeological institutes conducted exhaustive excavations across the Epang Palace site. They drilled tens of thousands of test holes covering the entire platform and surrounding areas, searching for evidence of fire ash, charred wood, burned bricks, or scorched earth. They found nothing. No layers of ash, no carbon residue, no signs of any large fire at all. They also found no completed buildings, no pillars, no floors, no roof tiles in place, no courtyards, no halls. All they found was a giant rammed earth base and 3 low walls. Epang Palace was never finished. It was a ghost palace, a monument to imperial ambition that outlived the dynasty that built it. The real tragedy of Epang is not that it was burned. It's that it was never meant to exist, not for the people, not for the empire, but only for the ego of one man. It drained the empire's wealth, broke its people, and left a legacy of ruin that perfectly mirrors the Qin dynasty itself, a project of unprecedented scale, built on suffering, abandoned in chaos, and remembered for all the wrong reasons. Epang Palace teaches us a timeless lesson about power. Grand monuments cannot save a ruler who abandons his people. Qin Shi Huang wanted a palace that would last forever, but his obsession with greatness destroyed the very empire he sought to immortalize. The rammed earth platforms still stand outside Ji, and today, silent and empty, a reminder that even the grandest dreams collapse when built on cruelty and greed. This is the true story of the so-called palace under heaven, not a burned wonder, but an unfinished warning from the depths of ancient history. If you enjoyed this journey into ancient China, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more epic history.